So, Cavalier Guest, let's do this. The first draft of the day between eStar and Super Perfect Team here in the red colors. Tumors Battle Queen is the map, just in case you're not able to read Chinese characters like I am. And we see a Zarya ban coming out.
And respond with the Tassadar ban. That's going to be, I think, the standard pretty much for this entire tournament. If you don't ban a shielder, then you can get a shielder, but the other team won't ban one either, and then they're guaranteed to get a shielder. And then both teams have a shielder, and neither team wants that.
Exactly. Like, shields are every pro player's bane, I feel. Not so much for, you know, the more casual community, the casual atmosphere or environment out there, but pro players, they don't like to play against those shielding comps with a Medivh, with a Tassadar, with a Zarya in particular. So we will find, or we're going to find those shield characters banned very, very often. And as a response, we see a first pick Gul'dan responded by a Ragnaros and a Malfurion, and you can really see how, especially in terms of Brand Queen, wave clear is key. You want to get those big AoE damage characters out there, like a Gul'dan, like a Ragnaros, to really dominate early game rotations, and it seems to be that China is no exception in that regard.
Now, we are going to see them murder Morales picked up. This is something that China in particular would do a lot of. They'll draft one hero, particularly on these maps with a close lane rotation, that has enough wave clear to deal with both lanes by himself as long as he's protected. And then that leaves them open to draft pure aggression for the other three picks and constantly be poking and prodding and seeing if they can catch someone out of position, knocking someone out of position. We've seen more aggressive Morales grenades from the Chinese scene than from any other scene by far. That is going to be flipping through the skins there. It looks like they're thinking about the love Dr. Morales.
Exactly.
A little bit surprised to see that Ragnaros prioritized this heavily.
Yeah, but he did receive a couple of nerfs, didn't he? So he's not nearly hitting as hard as he used to, but I think the main argument that many teams still have in favor of the Fire Lord is the Molten Core, oftentimes considered to be like a second Auric ability or so, but the Molten Core is really what can empower your own pushes or defend very splendidly against an enemy push going down, and especially when you have the Vet Fevers on Tombs of Brighter Queen, that can oftentimes be a life-saving tool.
And it gives you that potential to not fall behind if you do draw on a draft to late game composition. Ragnaros gives you the best bridge to the late game because of Molten Core, because of its defensive potential. And it puts you in a position to like, okay, we can take Nazeebo now, and we can pretty much guarantee that we get to 20. We're not going to lose or get pushed in, or if we do make a mistake, or if they catch us out of position, they can't just end the game necessarily or get a keep for free or anything like that. Falstad Zeratul bans coming through. The Zeratul ban is pretty expected. Twilight Dream plus Smash, like both of those are really good follow-ups to VP. The Falstad ban is a little unusual. This is not a map where globals tend to be prioritized in other regions, and it would have been Gul'dan Falstad, which is a little unusual, but they could be going for some sort of heavy engage comp, and they didn't want to have to deal with the Gust. Also, Gust gives peel from the Morales.
Yeah.
So now they don't have an option to be like, we're going to save Morales no matter what. You know, like, no, you're not. We can actually get to Morales.
Exactly. And we see a Li Ming. Long time no see here, at least in the Western hemispheres. Li Ming, always a hero to look out for. And we also see a Tychus, despite, you know, being nerfed in the past, but receiving a couple of buffs with the latest balance update. The role of Tychus is definitely going to be defined over the next few weeks of HGC, I feel. Some people that I talked to, some really good players and pro players that I talked to, said that the buffs were sufficient enough to make him relevant again. What is your take on that, Cavalier?
I think Tychus is absolutely relevant. As long as Murden is a relevant tank, particularly in the Korean and Chinese metas, Tychus is going to be a relevant pick because Tychus, right from his rework, was considered a card counter to Murden in particular.
Yeah.
And there's been some changes to that dynamic. Actually, even cooldowns have affected it. Slight reduction on Murden's cooldowns boosted him back up a little bit in the matchup because now he can jump out, regen from his trait, and then jump back in before Tychus' trait was available again. But the overkill change made it so that he can chunk a tank, force the tank to disengage, and then go Q build and get on a fragile backliner with his Q and keep up with them and help his team secure a kill that way. So he has sort of this double-edged sword. He can chunk tanks with his trait and then chunk backliners with his Q. Yeah. And he actually has surprisingly good wave clear for a close ranged assassin. It's going to be interesting to see if he really does counter the Muradin.
Yeah, if he does really counter the Muradin, and of course there's also a Chen now being locked in. You could almost call the Chen a rare Chinese phenomenon still happening. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw Chen in any of the NA or EU HGC games. It's still something a little bit awkward, I feel. We saw it during the Eastern Clash as well, when SPT tried to make it work against some of the Korean teams out there. Didn't really work out that well, to be honest. So we're going to see if Chen could potentially still be something that we only see in China, or maybe after it works well, that's going to find its way over to other HGC leagues as well. I remain a little bit skeptical, though, Cavalier.
The advantage of Chen, a lot of people don't really understand what exactly Chen does or why exactly Chinese teams value him. If you don't have some way to interrupt Drink, you basically can't beat him in lane.
Yeah.
So if you auto win a lane and it's a 3-lane map, it's a third of the map, that's a pretty big deal. He can pressure someone like a Ragnaros all the way back to his fort. He can use Elusive Brawler plus Drink to actually start draining ammo. And if the ammo's already drained and you get a turn in and your lanes are, and you're more likely to get a turn if your lane's already pushed in anyway, because then you have better vision control of turn in, the first Web Weaver turn in can actually end up getting more value. So you can turn that lane advantage into an experience advantage because you get more structure damage on your first turn in. Then you're ahead in levels, and it doesn't matter if Chen's not as good post 10, post 13, because you're ahead. As long as you're 3 levels ahead, every hero is good.
The thing is, which build do you think we're going to see? Asian players, they normally like to go for that infamous Donkey Kong build where they focus a lot on the barrel, they focus a lot on the W. Western players, they weren't really following that trend. They were going for a more standard build with more Qs at 13 and 16. Do you think we're going to see a Donkey Kong build here?
I think we might see a Donkey Kong build. I want to see Ring of Fire 4, though. If you really want to play Chen and dominate a lane matchup to get that tempo advantage in terms of experience, to keep your team ahead, then I want to see it. But Donkey Kong build does scale better into the late game, and Chen will still manage to keep his team even in at least one lane.
Right.
And their objective right now, they have the Nazebo. Their objective is just to clear waves and rotate, and clear waves and rotate, and maybe control turn-ins. They're not going to be aggressive for picks. Their entire comp is based around getting to 20 without losing more than a keep. If they get to 20 without a keep gone, Super Perfect Team should be able to win the very, very late game.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves in the very first game of the very first series of HGC China in 2017. On the left-hand side, you get to see what many people consider still to be the best team in China, eStar, and one of the few teams that scrims and fights Korean teams on even footing. On the right-hand side, on the red color, we see their challengers, Super Perfect Team. A team that also took place or participated in the Eastern Clash, however, failed to deliver good results to the disappointment of many Chinese fans, I think. So this is basically where it all comes down. This is where we're going to see which Chinese teams are going to remain dominant. Of course, it's a longer season, it's a longer league, so we shouldn't really draw too many hasty conclusions just from watching the first week or the second week, but I think it's actually safe to say that both eStar and Super Perfect Team are some of the favorites when it comes to taking the championship, especially with Zero Panda disbanding and X Team kind of being in the top 3 here as well. Who do you think could possibly challenge eStar and Super Perfect Team throughout the season, Cavalier?
I don't. I think eStar is clearly the dominant team.
Right.
I don't know if there's a Chinese team that's anywhere near their level. But here we're already seeing some of the unique aspects of China here. Normally this map, bottom is the solo lane. You have a 4-man rotation mid-top, and maybe your solo laner, if he has good enough wave clear, comes up to mid, and you have sort of the 5-man in mid every wave as it comes along. But we're seeing a weird 2-1-2 situation going on where Morales and Gul'dan are kind of rotating together. Muradin's sort of everywhere on the map, rotating between mid and bottom, between waves. And then we see the Chen and the Nazebo in the bot lane. Nazebo's not rotating for stacks. They're just trying to dominate one lane and force an awkward rotation for eStar. This mitigates eStar's potential to get picks with their ETC Malfurion combo, because they don't really know exactly where everyone's going to be. The Muradin keeps dismounting them. They keep getting pushed back because SPT has superior wave clear in this very, very early game. And this is the kind of macro strategy that's just a little bit off, a little bit different. And the Chinese love this. This is how they do their lanes.
Something that's also kind of cool to see when we take a look at Qin Zhao here, who's rocking the Gul'dan. We saw a lot of Western teams prioritizing the Q build from the Fell Flame. Qin Zhao goes for a little bit more of his old-school standard route, focusing on the Echoed Corruption. So He's going to not have the same wave clear power when it comes to dealing with wave clear pushes and minion waves in general, but I think he's going to have a lot more team fight impact if he gets... Oh, there we go. First blood going down here in favor of SPT. Li Ming falling here. We didn't really catch it. The cameraman still probably in his warm-up phase here as well. Definitely not going to fault him too much for that. Now there's a little bit of an engagement going down here. ETC pressuring Gul'dan, but... ZZH here on the Morales so far taking good care. When I play Morales, I always feel like, you know, it always feels like being a mommy, and I have to take care of all my children at the same time. I also call her Mommy Morales on stream for that purpose here. I'm super excited to see how Morales is going to fare throughout this game, because it is a hero that has exceptional single target heal, but especially against potential like wombo combos with ETC, Rag, and Li Ming resets, I think she could actually struggle to keep several members alive at the same time.
It's going to come down to positioning from her entire team. Murden has to be the one who's primarily soaking up those damage in the hard engage fights, especially post 13. He'll be really, really good at that. Chen, went elusive brawler at 1, did not go grounding bruise, so he's a little bit vulnerable to Li Ming combos. They have a fair number of disruptions for his drink, so he's going to have to be a little bit more careful on the flanks. You can see he's already starting to back up. He goes back in as ETC's abilities have both been used, and there we go. Murden does go in, gets chunked, and gets saved by the rotation from Morales here. Ragnaros ends up going down in the back lane, and it wings again the interrupt, but he is going to be able to disengage.
Oh, so close here. Tiger almost falling on the Li Ming. Gets another Fell Flame. No, it's not long enough. Quinn Zhao dropping another corruption here, but Malfurion keeping everybody alive here on the side of eStar. So good job for our favorites here in this early game. But they are a little bit behind in XP. They're now trying to potentially defend this turn-in point here. ETC getting pressured into the zombie wall, and it looks like he is about to fall. Is he? Murden body blocking, and down he goes. Something that I always like seeing on Tombs of Brand Queen in general is an Azebo. I think comparable to a map like, let's say, Dragonshire, like basically all the maps that have early or focus on early game rotations are just a thriving environment for an Azebo. If he gets rolling, if he gets past 16 and 20 with enough stacks, I think he's going to be an absolute late game powerhouse. So always, I feel, when you play against an Azebo team, there's like a ticking time bomb going in against your favor. Like the moment you hit level 20 and you don't have a significant advantage on your side, it's going to be extremely tough for you to finish the game.
That's absolutely true. And we're starting to see the early game power from SPT. They drafted the Gul'dan, they drafted the Chen, and they're starting to do work. They're pushing these lanes in. Those picks gave them the free turn-in, but they already had all their lanes pushed all the way up. You can see the top towers here are already out of ammo.
Right.
This is an incredibly valuable first turn-in. You generally don't get more than a wall from the first turn-in if the other team has had good lane control and managed to pressure you, but instead they're getting bottom wall, they got top wall. They're going to get mid wall here as well. That's a lot of towers. That's more than it's going to be more than a level's worth of experience in the end if they can grab that top wave here. We do see Gul'dan starting to do that rotation to make sure he does grab it. That's a huge advantage. They're guaranteed to get 10 first, and if they just back off, patiently soak 10, they're also going to get a consecutive turn-in, and at this point, eStar is just very much on the back foot. They want to fight, and they don't think they can, so they are going to grab their Bruiser Camp instead to mitigate the value of that next turn-in, but they are lost right now.
Exactly, and it's actually surprising to see how well SPT manages to play that early game. I mean, they do have a lot of wave clear. That's certainly out of the question here. We have Gul'dan, Nazeebo also adding a little bit. Chen is actually, as you mentioned earlier, Cavalier, a really powerful solo laner too. So while the rest of his team was busy rotating, Chen was able to hold his own without, making his enemy, or his allies, worry too much about himself here. And they also got the first wave weaver turn, didn't really get too much value in. All the forwards on the side of eStar is still standing strong, but they now have heroic abilities already, and we see the focus on Malfurion. No ice block yet because he's not 13, and he goes down. Chen just chasing down ETC now mercilessly. Tiger also getting a stun now, but for now, the onslaught of SPT has been stopped. But once again, they get a good pickup, and I think if they manage to carry the wave of momentum here, to ride the wave of momentum, they have what it takes to potentially even get this first game of the best of 5 set.
Yeah, these zombie walls have been on point as well. They just keep constantly tracking people. He didn't go things the deep at level 1 either, so he's just doing those from the base range. It seems like every time they see the Nazeebo coming, they ought to back up and not be stuck around a wall that makes it relatively easy to aim the zombie wall. But they keep walking into obvious, easy positions to get walled off. And And they're starting to take a lot of damage as a result. But somehow eStar actually sneaks a turn in while SPT is trying to manage the lanes. And this is part of the problem that SPT has a lot of the time. They will do really, really well in some ways, and then they'll get distracted or they'll get... something will happen. The enemy team will do something, and for a moment, they'll lose focus on what's important on the map, and they'll just let something go for free.
That's actually a common phenomenon that we see in other HGC leagues as well. In Europe, for example, we have a really interesting team like Team Synergy from Eastern Europe. They dominate early in mid games, but as you said, Cavalier, they're not experienced enough, they're not clever enough and smart enough to sometimes carry the lead that they established early into the late game, and oftentimes against more veteran and more seasoned teams, they will not be able to conclude a game into their own favor. And we're going to be able to see whether that's come true or going to come true for SPT here, as well as another team fight breaks out here. Wings on the Chen using his ulti to dive deep, chasing down Malfurion. He has no ice block ready, so he's going to have to take good care of himself here. Tychus, Odin going down. Xing Si, one of the most dreaded ranged assassins here, coming in from the Chinese scene, gets taken down, though. Tiger, that is, and more people are falling left and right. Murden now a victim here as well. Xing Zhao really, really low, falling. It's a 2-for-1 trade in favor of eStar so far, and they're looking good. Morale is falling to another W coming in from Ragnaros, and it looks like we might have jinxed it, Cavalier. SPT crumbling under the pressure of eStar's teamed efforts here, but at least they get another condolence kill here on ETC. But overall, pretty good fight. Pretty good first team fight here for eStar, and they took the lead now in global XP while also securing a lot of gems, 53 out of 55. They're probably going to wait until ETC's back until they turn in the remaining ones. And yeah, 13 advantage also online now for eStar, Cavalier.
That was such a brilliant fight from both teams. You saw the huge focus on the Li Ming for SPT because they understand the critical aspect of a Li Ming comp is getting those resets. If you can kill Li Ming, and even if you trade 1-for-1, she doesn't have resets. You don't lose the fight after that point. But eStar's comp is all about killing Murden, really, with the Tychus, with the amount of lockdown they have to accomplish that. And they focus Murden hard. He was the first person to go down. It's not easy to kill Murden first in a fight. I mean, it will be a little bit more difficult now that he is 13. That was the point where they really wanted to try and make that happen post-10, but pre-13, pre-healing static. And they're going to get another turn-in off the back of that. It's 2 consecutive turns for eStar when it should have been 2 consecutive turn-ins for SPT. They just mismanaged, they mismanaged the game for literally 20 seconds. That's all it took for eStar to bring this back into their favor.
I mean, only one tiny slip-up is enough for eStar to punish you heavily, and that's exactly what we saw in that team fight. Now, H trying to go in on the ETC, not long enough the reach on his power slide here, but I think it's all about just zoning them out here. They want to create some space for the White Beavers to do their dirty work on the buildings. They got one for it already. Looks like the bottom one is about to fall here already. Nazeebo not going to be enough to defend that one, so not only in terms of global XP, but also in terms of structures, eStar is really getting a significant lead out of this here. Now, let's take a look at Chen's build. We were talking about that earlier during the draft. We see indeed the Donkey Kong build coming out here with a heavy focus on a couple of W talents here. So far, it hasn't really worked too well. It remains to be seen, though, if they can maybe lock someone down and maybe just slow the advance of eStar in total. Because it's all about, slowing. It's all about zoning when you get that Chen build rolling. So far, though, eStar getting more and more in the position that they wanted to have in the game.
And this is what you have to do against an Nazeebo comp in particular. You have to get ahead in experience, not let them get to 20 and close out the game before that Nazeebo power spike happens. Because if you have to fight into a level 20 Nazeebo who has Violent Faction, who's finished the quest, it's extremely difficult. Even the sheer healing throughput from someone like a Malfurion is not necessarily going to cut it. We are seeing Bigger They Are and the full Q build coming out of Tychus here. A little bit of a skirmish around turn-in. They're jockeying for vision here while trying to clear the bruisers for both teams. They don't want to let either one get a turn in. Chen is trying to turn in bot here. We see Li Ming with the poke, Tiger on top of that. And this is the brilliance of especially European teams. All the goaltending, making sure that teams cannot get these turn-ins.
Now Misaka in trouble here, getting isolated by a knockback from H very nicely, but they just didn't have enough damage to take him out. Morales also taking care of the Murden here very nicely, but those moves alone, they cost so much time for SPT to recover that eStar has all the time in the world to get their pain in. And once again, if they get another turn in, they can even get a bigger lead. And as you said, Cavalier, if you're playing against that ticking time bomb, that is Nazeebo, you definitely want to make sure to dominate the early mid game as well, so you won't have that tremendous juicy, beefy Voodoo Doctor to face in the later stages of the game. Now, they're trying to keep SPT away from the turning point. As you can see, all 3 lanes are now greatly pushed in, and they're just fine with, you know, soaking to 16, which they unlocked right now. And this might be the moment for them to engage once again with that 16 advantage bonus.
One of the most interesting things about Heroes of the Storm, we talk about the comeback mechanic experience from being behind in levels, but if you're ahead, you probably are pushing all your lanes. You're getting all that experience. You're trying to get more ahead. But pushing all your lanes in means that your minion waves get further up, and it's easier for the other team to clear them to catch back up in terms of experience. So SPT is slowly catching up in experience. This started out, you know, 15 to 16, and it was even in experience, even in the levels, amount into the level, I should say. And then 15 is almost done. 16's picked up. SPT actually caught up a little bit in experience because the waves were so pushed in. And just being patient and backing up and using that advantage to catch up is something we don't see, you know, amateur teams do, even top amateur teams. Usually they'll just be like, oh, we're behind, we should force, we should do something, we need to make something happen. Playing patiently, especially when you have a late game call, is the sign of a really together team that trusts that their draft is going to work.
And oftentimes teams get very anxious the moment they lose a couple of fours, and they're like, oh, we can't let this trend continue. As you said, they're getting a little bit anxious and overzealous almost. But as long as all your keeps are standing, it means that you don't have to take like permanent structural damage. So usually if you lose a couple of forwards, that's totally fine. You just don't want to fall even further behind by taking an unfavorable team fight here. And so it's all about patience, as you said here. Another team fight going down here. Something that I also want to highlight here, Cavalier, is Lieutenant Morales' heroic ability choice, the medevac. I think it's pretty much a dead heroic ability. It's a very small map Tomb of Spider Queen that is to begin with, so I don't think we're going to see any value from that anytime soon. We see the Odin going down from Ting Z, and this might be the time for eStar to make their move and choose their team fight. Molten Core now on the right-hand side. You see the zoning potential on the backline here. Morales getting pressured heavily by all those fireballs coming down here. And ZZH here needs to be extremely cautious, but Nazeebo also did a great job zoning with the Gargantuan in the choke point here. So once again, a lot of heroic abilities used, a lot of trades being used here, but no decisive outcome so far.
Now, but SPT did get that turn in, which was all they were going for. They weren't trying to win a fight. They just wanted to deep push all their lanes and potentially get the experience. If they can push up to a fort and get the fort, they'll be caught up almost completely in experience. And again, their win condition is get to 20. If they can get to 20, then they should just win the game. You did talk about the medevac, and in medevac, this is a small map, but it's not being used for the global. It's essentially being used as a very, very long cooldown version of Ice Block. If Morales gets into trouble, she just leaves. You just self-heal. It's very difficult to burst through the medevac.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes ETC, you know, he has that mobility. He's going to get on top of you. There's really not much you or your team can do about it. And if you're out too far out of position, but we're going to see the Q from Chen here going over the building, getting on top of Tiger. Tiger does have to blink out, but actually, unfortunately, the spider shadow wave was there.
There we go, the Web Weaver basically stealing that kill away from SPT, but I think they're more than fine with allowing that one. And, you know, Tiger falling is actually a pretty big deal, because now the bottom lane is open. They find themselves in a 5 versus 4 spot here, SPT that is. They also have, look at that scouting drone placement here as well. They make sure that themselves can't get flanked by anyone or anything while they're sieging up here in this bottom lane. ETC now going in. Keep in mind that there's still one man down, so H definitely doesn't want to overextend here. The Fear catching him out here very nicely. Is he going to fall, though? It's still a one-man disadvantage for eStar, but they don't care. They want to defend this bottom keep as much as they can, and so far they seem to be successful. H surviving on that ETC. Wow, that was a really, really good defense considering the fact that they were one person down.
You can see the ETC was going for the flank, going for the isolation, and so they just medevac out. You really can't stop them, but Murden did not get in the medevac.
Oh my god, they're catching him with a one-man mosh pit! Now, you do want to argue, is it worth it? I mean, I think so. Look at all those gems being lost now for SPT.
It's absolutely worth it. It's the gems. It guarantees the turn-in for eStar. They get their lanes automatically pushed. And, you know, this is something that doesn't get talked about enough. Even though Mosh Pit is a 120-second cooldown, if you can ever guarantee a kill with your heroic or conversely deny a kill with your heroic 100% of the time, you should just use your heroic.
Yes.
Especially as you get into the 18, 19, 20 level of the game, death timers become so long. You can turn a single pick into a huge advantage on the map. Here they're getting turn-in and
they're doing it
boss
right now
for free.
Yeah, eStar is basically capitalizing heavily on this one-man pickup here, one-man mosh. I mean, it was basically just a private concert for Murden, but a deadly one here for sure. And as you said, Cavalier, not only do they get or do they steal all the gems away from SPT, but they also get their own turn, and they played that so smartly, eStar that is. They started the boss first and then turned in, so otherwise the boss of course would have vanished and disappeared, and now they have one hell of a mighty push going down in that top lane. They're also going to be 20 faster as a result because they get tower XP. They're probably going to get keep XP here as well, so SPT with their backs against the walls here, they have to find a way to defend this, and they have to find a way to get 20 themselves when Nazeebo's final form is going to be unleashed.
HGC leaving double soaking during that. They pushed us forward. They had the Weaver and the boss, so they're guaranteeing themselves 20. And this is when the point where they want to tempo out the game if they can. If they can end here, if they can get the keep, get Rag taken over in the mid keep, and push S5 with the talent tier advantage, that would be like the dream scenario for them. The Weaver does go down, unfortunately. They won't be able to get more value with this. They do get every single keep wall and top keep, but SPT, their win condition is get to 20 without being down more than one keep, and they're only at like a 10th of a level away from that right now.
I would love to see the stack counter for the Voodoo Ritual on Nazeebo. I don't think there was the notification in the lower third so far that he completed it, but I'm pretty sure that sooner or later he's going to get it, because Tomb Branded Queen is just made for him to finish it. There's so many minion waves to depush on. It's just a very tiny map in general, so I'm more than, you know, convinced that he's gonna have that quest completed very, very soon. Chen now, oh my god, he gets blown up just at the nick of time here. He was almost done casting his Pandaren Pals. And also, another kill going down here for eStar, the Molten Core and the Sulfurious Smash, making sure that Gul'dan bites the dust here. 3 people down, triple kill for eStar, and they are on the warpath, and they're about to finish this game. Top lane already naked, so they could threaten the core right away, but I think they're playing it safely. They're getting another keep to further bolster their late game advantage here, and maybe after that keep they're gonna finally attack the core directly. We see just a little bit of a BM step here from Z. He used it too early, and he's now paying for it.
One cast of spiders right there. That was beautiful synergy, though, in that pick for the team fight, because it was Wave of Force to prevent the retreat, guarantee the Sulfurous swing, and then into the smash. And as good as beautiful as that was, I think
I'm not sure if they can finish it. One of their main DPS sources, the Tychus, now fell. They have catapults online, though, and I think thanks to the catapults, they might have enough damage after all. But, you know, a little bit of a reckless play from Ragnaros using his Submerge a little bit too soon, and then had to pay the blood price for it. But as it is, GG! 1-0 in favor of eStar, the big favorite, the big name in China so far, living up to their reputation. And we have to say one thing, though, Cavalier. SPT, especially during the early stages of the game, didn't look without a chance. It was not like they were getting steamrolled left and right. It was just that I think during the mid and late game, they kind of took a couple of advantageous fights.